Yo, this is STC Donny. Welcome to my YouTube channel, my personal channel. Today, we're doing a how to change your own spark plugs yourself. We'll be working on my '04 ecotec, it's ecotec Cavalier, sorry, which is turboed, so it might look a little different than most you'll see, but same difference. This is not how to change on a Cavalier, this is how to change your spark plugs in general. You're going to need to take off your ignition cover or your coil pack or whatever's in the way, and that's why I have the little 10mm. You're going to need to find out what size your spark plugs are so you can have that size socket. You're going to need to find out which spark plugs you need. In this case, I'm using the NGK Platinum G Powers for my 2.2 ecotec. Now, you need to either look up online or in a Hilton's or manual or manufacturer manual. You can even call a dealer to get your particular gap. You have to gap your spark plugs. Don't always assume they're gapped correctly, especially after shipping. So, we got our gapping tools. I have a feeler gauge. I have the coin style gapping tool. And we have this China gapping tool. And I have this gapping tool, which is what I'm actually going to use. It's really cool. I picked this up on eBay from a seller, and it works great. Mine's a 14mm spark plug on the threads, so I just got that size of this tool. So let's go to the engine bay. Welcome to my engine bay. So I do have a 4-cylinder, so of course you need one spark plug per cylinder. You have 4-cylinder, you need 4, 6, you need 6, 8, you need 8, and so on, assuming you have a Viper or something crazy. 4 cylinders are probably the easiest thing to change plugs on. They can either be, this is a front wheel drive, so they could be on the front here, which is not on mine. I have fuel injectors, or they could be on the back side, on the side of the head, or in my case, because I have an ecotec, they're on top of the engine underneath this ignition cover. That's the ignition control module, so we need to remove that first on this engine to get to them. So another thing I'm going to mention while I start taking this apart is that I'm just going to unplug the ignition control module here on this. There we go, this pulls right out on my engine. Another good thing to mention is I don't have spark plug wires. If you have spark plug wires on your car, it's best to only do one spark plug at a time, especially if you're new, so that you don't confuse the wires. Because if you cross the spark plug wires, you'll have a fun time trying to get your engine to run right again. Or you'll be paying a mechanic to get it right for you again. So on this engine, it just pops right off. Of course, I got the shocker on my engine. So I'm going to place this ignition coil out of the way. This is what we have on an ecotec. Instead of spark plug wires, we have these little boots connected to this ignition module. And that's the actual coil pack. So now we can go ahead and take the plugs out. So on this engine, like I said, the plugs are in the center of the engine. So you can see down here. Hold on, let me turn a little light on for you. You see my plugs are right in the center here, 3 and 4 of the engine here. So we're going to go ahead and use our extension and our socket wrench to take these out. We can go ahead and take all 4 out now that all the ignition components are gone. Now this really is like one of the simplest jobs to do, depending on the car. Front wheel drive V6s really are just a pain, but 4 cylinders, pretty simple. So we're just going to go ahead and put our socket an extension down there, break each one loose, and that's all it should take if people haven't over tightened these. Now if you go ahead and change your own spark plugs, you'll never have the issue of people over tightening these. Over tightening these not only gets these stuck in your head, which is dangerous, especially if you break one off on the head. Now we can just undo it by hand with this extension, but also it's just a pain. But if you do these yourself and tighten them properly, which I'll show you later how much you're actually going to tighten these. Now there are torque specs for even your spark plugs, yes. As corny as it is. You could go by your torque specs, which you can look up in the manual or online. Or basically you hand tighten them and then you go a quarter of a turn after that, and that's as much as you're going to tighten them, and that's it. Now I change my spark plugs on this car every year because I'm boosted, and I go through plugs a lot faster because of all the extra stress on them from the turbo. But if you have platinum plugs, you can usually go at least about 3 years before you have to change them. You can change them every year anyways. I even do on my NA cars, just because it just lets them run a little healthier, you know? And it's such a cheap investment on maintenance to do, you know? So after I get this last one out, we'll go ahead and gap the new plugs, and we're going to lube them up. Okay, see you back on the work table. So now we're at the stage where we're going to take our spark plugs and do our gap. I'm going to use this tool for mine, just because it makes it easier for me. But you can use one of these coin style gauges, or you can use one of these. You just have to be real careful with these, especially with a precious metal plug. You can easily break the actual little precious metal on here. I'm going to show you. Let's open this up. Here's a shiny new spark plug. So if you look closely, you can see the little tip inside on the top. As soon as it wants to focus here. There you go, you can see the little tip in there. That's what you don't want to break off, that little tiny tip inside the center here, in the center. So you got to be real careful, and that's why I like to use this style. All you got to do is Google or look on eBay or Amazon. I got this one on eBay for spark plug gap tool. You might get a lot of these styles, but I like this style. I'm going to use mine. I'm going to use mine and go to 0.035, 35ths, okay? Because I have a boosted car, and that's what my gap needs to be set at. The factory spec on these cars is actually 0.043. I need a smaller gap for my turbo car so that it doesn't blow the flame out from the boost. So, you can see it moves freely. We want it to be tight. So we're going to slowly come down, just a little bit at a time, until we get it. Oh, that's just a little bit more. You want to just catch. And be careful with that electrode in there. Not quite yet. You just keep going. It's even if you're doing this, no matter what way you're using to set the gap, it's best to go just a little at a time. See how it's grabbing? You can kind of hear it. That's perfect. You want to just grab your feeler gauge. So I'm going to go ahead and take this out. I'm going to do the rest of these, and we're going to show you how we use the NICs and the dielectric grease, and then reinstall the new plugs. So now I'm at the point where I have all my 4 plugs, or 6 or 8 in your case, depending what vehicle you have. All my plugs are gapped. I just put them in here so they don't roll off the table, or so they're protected. So now we're going to add some anti-seize lubricant to the actual threads. You don't want to add too much. I've actually seen vehicles where the spark plugs literally pop out from compression, and they wonder why their car is misfiring. And they're also going to put some of this dielectric grease on this side, on the ceramic, so that it doesn't get stuck on the boot. Because if it gets stuck on the boot, you're going to have a headache trying to rip the boot off, and you have to replace your boots when you don't want to. So we're going to go ahead and just put a little bit of grease on these. I'm going to show you about how much to put on here. You just put, don't mind if there's background noises. I am making this a real video, so I'm outside. I'm not in a shop or anything. Just a dab, and then you're going to use your finger and spread it all the way around the threads. And as you thread it in, it'll also spread. It'll also, as you spread it around here, go in the threads. You might need a little more just so you can get it all around. You don't want to do too much. And then, when you go to thread this into the vehicle, it will go into the threads in the head, of course. You especially want to do this in a car like this one, where it's an aluminum head, because you don't want to have the issue of it getting stuck in the aluminum head. Then it's just a nightmare. So as for the dielectric grease, I'm just going to put a little bit on this side. So it's clear, so it may be a little hard to see on the camera. So you put a little more. You can be liberal. Just put it on the ceramic. And that way, it won't get stuck on the boot. So now we can go ahead and do this to all four, and we're going to go ahead and hand thread these into the head. Alright, now we got our spark plugs gapped to our gap, which you need to always gap your spark plugs, even if they say it's pre-gapped. I don't care what the auto parts store person says. A lot of them don't even work on their own cars. So anyways, even if it's pre-gapped, check your gap and adjust your gap as necessary, as shown earlier in this video. So now they're all lubricated with the anti-seize and the dielectric grease, and they're gapped. We're going to go ahead and hand tighten them and hand thread them. Be very careful not to cross thread them, because you don't want to have to rethread your head, especially on an aluminum engine. So we're going to put this in a little extension, and we're going to go ahead and start threading these in one at a time. If I go out of frame, it's just to grab the other plugs off the table. So I carefully line it up, thread it in by hand, as tight as I can get it by hand, you know, without being ridiculous. We're going to go ahead and do this for all four, of course. Or if you have a 6, all 6, or all 8. Depends what you got. It's good to learn to do your own maintenance. And that's why you should also check out my sister channel, the actual TeamSTC channel. We do a lot of how-tos on there, not only for ecotecs or cavaliers, but just vehicles in general. There's a lot of good stuff you can pick up on there. It's good to do your own maintenance. You save a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of hassle waiting for other people. And it feels good to be able to just take care of your own things. And it don't matter how old you are. And it don't matter if you're a male or a female, a dog, a cat, a bird. I don't care if you identify as a planet. It's good to do your own maintenance. It really helps out a lot. Some stuff like this is so easy, there's really no excuse not to do it. If you need to buy a little hand tool set to do it, buy a little hand. You should have hand tools anyways around the house or for your vehicle. You can't always try to rely on other people to do stuff for you, because then either it doesn't get done, or you'll just be waiting forever. And who wants to do that? Nowadays, everything's about quickness. Do stuff right now, right now. Well, if you do it yourself, you can just do it right now. Ain't gonna wait. Alright. So now, they're all hand tightened. I'm gonna grab my socket wrench and I'll be... So now, I got those hand threaded in. All we gotta do is not over tighten them to a ridiculous amount, like some people do. We're just gonna tighten up just enough. So by that, I mean, you're gonna get your little socket wrench, or in my case, my big ass socket wrench, and you're gonna give it a quarter turn after it's hand tightened. Ready? Oh, that's it. It's tight. Quarter turn. That's all you need. Don't over tighten the damn spark plugs. Oh, okay, quarter turn. Over tighten the spark plugs, you're gonna have issues getting them out later. Quarter turn. So hand tighten, quarter turn. Quarter turn. And that's it. Now we're going to put everything back together. We're going to go ahead and start her up, make sure she sounds good. And turbo E. You'll just have to ignore my exhaust leak. I'm actually fixing that soon. I have a small exhaust leak at the turbo manifold. So you will hear a little bit of clicking. It's not my timing, that's all done. It's the exhaust manifold. That's what the clicking might be when we start it up. But let's get this back together so we can start it up. So we got our coil pack. We're going to go ahead and pop it back in. Push it down. We're going to go ahead and plug our little electric connector in. Whatever electric connectors you have, or you put your spark plug wire back on. You know, if you're doing this on a car with spark plug wires, as I mentioned, do them one plug at a time, please. It's going to make your life a lot easier. When you do them, take one plug off, replace one plug, put the wire back on, take one plug wire off, take the plug out, and so on. And that's going to make your life a lot easier to not have to figure out which wire goes to which plug. I'm going to give it a little zoom here. Pretty simple. Now, there's torque specs even for these. You know, it's so many inch-pounds. in this car, I just sink it down. A lot of things are really important on torque specs, but some things are just ridiculous to torque. It's kind of dumb in my opinion, but they have torque specs for everything. But there we go. Make sure your connection is secure. Reconnect your battery if you just connect your battery, which is a good idea with messing with anything electrical. Let's go ahead and start it up and see how she sounds. Now, mind you, this is going to be a cold start. And I do have straight pipe exhaust and all that good stuff because it's turboed. So it's a little loud, but you just go ahead and start it up. See how she sounds. I also have an auxiliary fuel pump for the turbo, so it also sounds a little different. Now, like I said, that little clicking sound, that's just because I have a small exhaust leak in my manifold, and I am fixing that soon, so ignore that. But see, check your RPMs and your gauges, make sure your engine sounds right, make sure it sounds good, go and take it for a test drive, and that's all there is to changing your spark plugs. So anyways, that's all there is to changing your spark plugs. It's not that hard of a deal. Really, it's something that you should be able to do on your own, no matter what vehicle you have, and it's a lot cheaper to do it yourself. And sometimes it's just a good feeling to know you can do stuff yourself. So hopefully this helps someone out, especially maybe someone with one of these cars, but someone with any kind of car. You just want to do your spark plugs and want to know the basic steps. Every vehicle has different components, but every vehicle with a gasoline engine also has spark plugs. So take that into consideration. I hope you liked my video, and we'll see you next time.